Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. We're coming to you today from Srinagar, where there has been a great deal of speculation, a great deal of continued uncertainty amidst an unprecedented security presence of the CRPF. Some numbers or some detail which we can share is that the CRPF presence over here, numbering in the tens of thousands, not just in Srinagar but across the state, is perhaps unprecedented in the history of Jammu and Kashmir, certainly since 1971. Where is this all leading? Is this linked to some major political development in Jammu and Kashmir, or is this perhaps linked to what we see on the line of control, where the situation has been very volatile? Remember, the CRPF does not deal with security on the border or on the line of control. They deal with internal security. There is also the entire dimension of security inside associated with the major terrorist threat that has been explained by the government repeatedly over the last couple of days. Amarnath Yatris and tourists have been asked to leave. Most of them have left by now. But the big question is this: where are we headed in Jammu and Kashmir? What is this all about? These are all questions to which presently there are no clear answers.
After the Amarnath Yatra, now the centre has suspended two more important religious pilgrimages in Jammu and Kashmir. The Machil Yatra in Kishtwar district and Buddh Amarnath Yatra in Poonch district. The reason the government says is security. The 40-day long annual Machil Yatra in the mountains of Kishtwar had started last week. On Saturday, officials issued orders suspending the Yatra and told pilgrims to leave. Now hundreds of pilgrims from different parts of the state and country are returning back without completing the Yatra.
यहाँ से हम किश्तवाड़ से आगे जाने नहीं दे रहे हैं। बोल रहे हैं कि यात्रा बंद हो गई है। कारण कुछ तो बताने नहीं है। ऐसे ही हमें जाने नहीं दे रहे।
On Friday, the J&K Home Secretary directed all tourists and Amarnath Yatris to leave Kashmir immediately. The government cited a terror threat. Before that, the Yatra was suspended for 4 days after the government cited adverse weather conditions, even though there was no weather warning from the Met Office.
इस समय सरकार का कर्तव्य ये है कि वो लोगों को सही जगह पहुंचाए, उसकी व्यवस्था करे, लेकिन सरकार ये इस प्रकार की कोई व्यवस्था नहीं कर रही है। वो एडवाइजरी जारी करके लोगों को डरा और रही है कि आप जल्दी भागिए।
The National Conference has put in a calling attention notice in the Parliament and wants a debate on J&K tomorrow. They have also met the Prime Minister.
When we met Prime Minister, we explained what is going on in Kashmir. Whatever impression we got after we met Prime Minister, that impression gets diluted by the subsequent steps.
With two more important yatras being cancelled and no clear answers, confusion and chaos is deepening in the state. It is going to be a long night in Jammu and Kashmir. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi for NDTV.
The uncertainty in Jammu and Kashmir over the last couple of days seems to continue, with no clear answers being provided by the centre on just what the situation in the state is. Why really were Yatris moved out? Why were tourists asked to go? There are also a lot of reports or suggestions at this stage that the government at the centre may be contemplating some major political move for Jammu and Kashmir. These are all questions. No one really has any answers right now. The National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah joins us in Srinagar for more on this. Omar, are you as confused as the rest of us?
Why wouldn't I be? When the governor of the state says that nothing is happening today, but I don't know about tomorrow. So if he's confused about what to expect, how can you expect that any of us would know what is in the offing?
But he also told you that at the moment there was nothing in the works, right? This was yesterday.
But that was again with the subplot that aaj ka pata hai, kal ka pata nahi, and he also said that he doesn't know what is actually in the minds of people in Delhi, but as of now they've told him that nothing is in the offing. So my point is that when the governor of Jammu and Kashmir says that today nothing is happening but I can't give you any guarantees for tomorrow, then obviously all of us are confused.
What about people in Jammu and Kashmir, common people you are speaking to? I sensed a great deal of this confusion out on the roads as well. Shopkeepers asking us what's happening, why are people going home, why are they worried? In people you speak to, how has this been reflected?
Exactly the same way. Everybody wants to know why, what is happening, what is being anticipated. People want answers. They'd like some clarity. Now, this order to shut down the yatra, to ask tourists to leave, is unprecedented. In 30 years of turmoil in Jammu and Kashmir, we have never had a situation where the yatra has had to be stopped or where tourists have had to be dragged out of their hotel rooms and forced to leave. Yet, for some reason, other than being told that yes, there is some vague threat, there is nothing concrete that is being shared with the country. And this is at a time when Parliament is in session.
Yeah.
So one hopes that if nothing else on Monday, we will have some answers and the country will be told what was it that resulted in such a drastic step being taken. I mean, try and imagine that this was a Congress-led government in the centre and they had stopped the Amarnath Yatra, not just the Amarnath Yatra, other yatras in the state, the Buddha Amarnath Yatra, the Matsel Yatra, the yatras to Kausarnag and other places. Can you imagine if the Congress had put a stop to these yatras, what would have happened in the rest of the country? So, I think the people of the country as a whole, but particularly Jammu and Kashmir, are owed an explanation by the centre. I've asked my members of parliament to move an adjournment motion in parliament tomorrow, together with other political parties in the opposition, in the hope that we'll get some answers from the government of India.
But Omar, let's just look at this from a security prism, what the security establishment is saying. Number one, they're saying a few days back there was this major intrusion attempt, not just in Keren, but in a couple of other areas as well. There was also artillery shelling which was taking place. The bodies of these Pakistani soldiers apparently well inside our territory. The recovery of IEDs, the recovery of a large anti-personnel mine, sniper rifles, that represents a different sort of threat. If you add all of this together, then is there also not a credible argument that says that, look, we didn't want to take chances?
Take chances with what?
Take chances with the lives of yatris or tourists.
Do you know how far Keren is from Srinagar?
No, but it was on the route to the Amarnath Yatra where they...
Keren
not
is
Keren.
near the Amarnath
That they say
Yatra.
it's part of the entire process. The recovery of the IEDs, the recovery of the sniper rifle was on that route.
I am willing to accept that there must have been something very drastic that required you to stop the Amarnath Yatra. But that doesn't explain the Matsel Yatra.
No.
It doesn't explain the Buddha Amarnath Yatra. It doesn't explain Kausarnag. And it most certainly does not explain why you had to drag people out of their hotel rooms kicking and screaming and tell them they have to leave. It doesn't explain why journalists are being rounded up from other hotels in Srinagar and being told to put up only in one particular hotel in the capital city. So, I mean, yes, if the government says that there is a credible threat to the Amarnath Yatra, I'm willing to buy that.
Right.
And I'm unwilling, and nor will I press that the Yatra go ahead with this kind of threat, because we don't want to put Yatris' lives at risk. But to suggest that there is a threat to every single tourist. Now, Gulmarg in 30 years has not been hit. Pahalgam and Sonmarg have not been hit. Are we saying that we have allowed the situation in Jammu and Kashmir to deteriorate to such an extent that every single tourist, every single labourer, every single outsider and every single journalist today is threatened? If that is the case, then why doesn't the government say so in Parliament?
What about Amit Shah coming here perhaps a day or two after this session of Parliament ends? Does that, I don't know if reassure is the correct word, or do you see that as an opportunity for him to engage?
Look, again, there's a contradiction there, because if the government of India plans to set the state on fire with an announcement, why would the Home Minister be coming on a pre-planned visit?
Okay.
And therefore, look, I mean,
that just adds to the confusion,
that's,
right?
that's my point, that taken on its own, it makes a lot of sense. But when you start adding all these things up together, then suddenly none of this makes sense. And that's the problem. We're trying to join dots in a picture that we don't know. I mean, these are dots that are numbered, so we don't know what the picture looks like.
Omar Abdullah, thank you very much for speaking to us. I think in a scenario like this, the fact that nobody has any answers at this stage it just reflects what we are in right now. And I think more than political leaders or journalists asking questions and getting answers, it's the need to reassure people, not just here in Srinagar, but in other parts of the state, of what is taking place. Is anything taking place? And if it is, what are the implications for the common person that a lot of people in the state would want to know about? In Srinagar, with Ashok Mahale, Vishnu Shom for NDTV. Well, the big question, will answers to any of this be provided in a finite period of time? Is Monday going to be a very big day in the history of Jammu and Kashmir? Who knows at this stage? But political parties over here are all quite concerned about what this means. Will there be Article 35A being removed? Article 370 changes over there? Will there be possibility of trifurcation of the state? These are some of the points which are some of the key areas which people are looking at, the political parties are looking at. There was an all-party meeting a couple of hours back. Here's what Farooq Abdullah said at the end of that.
Abandonment of Amarnath Yatra, which has never happened before, even when we had worse times between 90 and 2000. I also, at the same time, appeal to the people of the state, Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh. मैं अपने लोगों से, हम सब की तरफ से अपील करता हूँ कि हर हालत में यहाँ अमन रखें, क्योंकि और सब्र करें.
All right. Well, joining us now to look at the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, the former General Officer Commanding of 15 Corps, Anuradha Bhasin Jambal, the Executive Editor of the Kashmir Times, and Rana Banerjee, who was Special Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat. Thank you all very much for joining us. Anuradha, let me come to you first. What is your sense of what's happening on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir today?
Vishnu, that's a very difficult question to answer because like everybody else, I'm as confused. But there are several questions and we are looking at the different trends and we are trying to make some sense out of it. There's a lot of panic in Kashmir, as you have seen, no doubt. And where does this panic stem from? This is indeed the first time that the yatra has been cancelled and the pilgrims are being returned or tourists are being asked to leave. And in some ways it does resemble the situation as it existed in 1990 when Governor Jagmohan was taking over, and a similar kind of panic. So do we expect a similar kind of an aftermath, a more aggressive form of what happened in the valley after the Kashmiri Pandits left? Or is it something else? Look, if there is a problem, if the security threat has been existing, and not that I'm denying it, it must be there in view of an Afghan talks and US talking about mediation. There are certainly security concerns on both sides. There might be certain kind of threats, but these threat perceptions, they seem to have just emerged overnight. And interestingly, the forces started being mobilized much before that. Either we were not told about these kind of intelligence inputs and the yatra was going on. There are few, I mean, you've had much more arms and ammunition being recovered on previous occasions in the last 30 years.
Yes.
But there's never been this kind
of Anuradha, panic. I'm just going to come in over here so that I can just go across to General Hasnain and sure. Anuradha, 1 second. I'll come back to you. We've got not too much time. So, General Hasnain, how, if from a security standpoint, you know, it's very volatile on the line of control. There's been artillery shelling. There have been ID recoveries. There's been a bat attack which has been thwarted. Pakistani soldiers well inside our territory. Their dead bodies are located over there. Would it be fair to surmise that speculation about any profound political move in Jammu and Kashmir would be premature because the situation along the line of control is very volatile?
Vishnu, I just heard your interview, your interaction with Mr. Farooq Abdullah, and he has raised a couple of very, very important points, for which I don't have answers. I would probably be asking the same issues. But to come specifically to your question on the line of control, there doesn't seem to be a connect between what's happening on the line of control and the political aspects which people are rumoring about in the valley. It doesn't make any sense to synchronize the two or to look at the two together. So I'm going to look only at the security situation. You see, I personally feel that after the meeting of Imran Khan with President Trump, a new confidence seems to have emerged in Pakistan, and the message seems to have gone out from Kashmir that this particular season the government has gone after the complete ecosystem, which may render Pakistan's capability of running this proxy war effectively almost completely null and void. And therefore, it is time to get back into Kashmir and do something about it. And that's why this hurried thing at the end of the month, by which you found a series of infiltration attempts being made, and only in Kashmir, not in the Poonch and the Rajouri sectors. Increased doses of artillery firing, again only in the Kashmir segment. The BAT actions, again only in the Kashmir segment.
Yes.
Now, if you see the geographical spread of this, the infiltration started from the Gurez, the corner of Gurez, went on to Machal, and then went on to Keren. Obviously, the attempt was to try and come from Bagtod and Gurez, which is the shortest route to Bandipur. When they did not succeed, they have been going away to further routes. Bad actions have been taking place primarily to push in, to my perception, to try and push in terrorist leaders and also possibly one or two SSG officers to try and instigate this whole thing, because there seems to be no terrorist leadership in the valley. And if someone is going to point fingers at my assessment,
okay, fair enough,
that in 1999, in August, 2 to 3 SSG officers of the Pakistan Army were infiltrated into Kashmir. So I think the intelligence...
All right, so you do believe that there is a couple of important points, General. I see what you're saying. You are basically saying that there is no link between the LOC and the situation in the valley, but at the same time the security situation remains critical and the efforts at infiltration very direct. I take that point completely, because in as much as, General, we've spoken about Keren over the last couple of days, that remains a serious situation there. There have also been infiltration attempts at a couple of other posts as well, and there has been, according to sources, one infiltration bid which may have been successful, 4 to 5 terrorists, trained terrorists, having entered Jammu and Kashmir. Rana Banerjee, let me come to you next, sir. The fact is, we've never seen this sort of deployment of the CRPF before, and in addition to the numbers, there is the entire pace of deployment itself. What does this, in your mind, indicate?
It would indicate that something definitely is brewing on the political front, but what exactly that could be, I find it difficult to assess, because as regards Article 35A, already there is a PIL petition pending in the Supreme Court, and it would make sense to wait for the judgment in that regard before rushing into some action on their own. But one can never say, because the other thing, I am in agreement with General Hassanen's very astute assessment, and I would like to concur with that. But whenever the Pakistani military establishment has been able to regain the confidence of the Americans, or about being able to get away with duping them about their duplicity, they have upped the ante in Kashmir. To that extent, we have to be prepared to face an upping of the ante, which could then be linked with some political event or decision, so that these people can exploit, the Pakistanis would like to exploit it to the maximum, to our discomfiture. But as regards what exactly is happening, I have really no idea.
Anuradha, the fact is that in a couple of days from now, Amit Shah, the Home Minister, is expected to be over here. Can that be seen as a realistic effort at trying to engage possibly political leaders over here? He would certainly interact with the security establishment. Or do you believe that at this stage, based on what the indicators are so far, that perhaps that visit will come after some sort of political move is made on the ground?
Right now, we don't see any kind of signs of a political outreach from the center. What we are seeing, in fact, is an attempt to marginalize the existing political voices in the state by raking up corruption charges. And strangely, if you see, all these corruption charges, I'm not saying that there may not have been any corruption, they may definitely have. It's only the Kashmiri politicians who are being picked up, giving a kind of sense as if, other politicians from Jammu region have never been involved in. So there is a certain kind of partisan way in which New Delhi is looking at even the mainstream politicians. They've treated the Hurriyat with contempt in the past. Now those lines are being obliterated. between the militants, the Hurriyat, the mainstream political parties, and that is very worrisome. Where is the space to talk?
Okay. General Hasnain, is it possible to look at this from an international standpoint as well? That there's been this visit of Imran Khan to Pakistan. One of you was mentioning this just a few moments back, where Pakistan appears to have been emboldened by what it sees as a success. India has no desire for any mediation from the United States. We've always said India and Pakistan need to talk to each other when the time is right. In a situation like this, is India trying to send a direct message to Pakistan and perhaps the international community that, look, Kashmir is our issue, it's our problem, and therefore we will do what we believe is in our interests?
Well, so far, Vishnu, from the Indian standpoint, I don't think we are sending any messages except the fact that we are trying to secure ourselves, and maybe next 2 or 3 days will tell us what exactly is happening from a political angle, which is a projection to the international community. But let me come back to your question again. The way Imran Khan has tweeted today to say that mediation in Kashmir is something which is necessary now with the situation the way it is emanating in Kashmir, it tends to me to deduce that neither Mr. President Trump nor Mr. Imran Khan have any idea what is the difference between mediation and crisis management. Crisis management is something which has happened in the past. We've had the Robert Gates diplomacy. We had President Clinton doing crisis management during the Kargil war. But mediation cannot be done unless India agrees to it. And India is far from it, with a government which is absolutely neo-nationalist. You cannot expect an angle of mediation coming in with the Shimla agreement behind us, with us. You can't even dream about it. So I think Imran Khan is actually barking up the wrong tree, attempting to sidetrack the whole issue, divert attention from it. And I don't think anything at the moment is very crystal clear on this aspect of the internationalization of the issue.
All right. Rana Banerjee, one final question to you. The fact of the matter is that CRPF deployed in important installations. They are deployed, of course, across the street. The real worry to a lot of people, obviously over here and at the center as well, the danger of violence on the streets of Jammu and Kashmir. In a situation as precarious as this, how important is it to have boots on the ground, whether it's the police or the CRPF? The army, of course, doesn't involve itself in internal security, at least not so far. But how important is it to have boots on the ground, irrespective of the decision which is taken?
Well, it seems to be a preemptive precautionary measure. In ample measure, they are putting strength there, which of course is would indicate that there is anticipation of great amount of public unrest which may erupt suddenly on account of some provocative decision. That's all that can be said.
Okay. Anuradha, you had a quick point as I wrap this up. Go ahead, Anuradha.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what General Hasnain said. In fact, I'd like to differ a bit. I do agree that foreign mediation is not a good thing, not only because that's the Indian stand, but also because whenever there is a foreign power intervening, there is always its own agenda. The best course of action, and we need to see the writing on the wall, the Afghan peace talks are going on, and it is in the best interests of South Asian region, both for India and for Pakistan, to mend the borders between India and Pakistan in view of the Afghan pullout, which would, if we don't do that, we'll have an extra burden of militants coming here this side. And this is the moment to talk. The initiative should come from South Asia. There has been a trust deficit, huge trust deficit between the two countries. They need to address this on their own, without playing mind games, without playing with the lives of people in Kashmir. Kashmir is not just a territory, it's a place where people live. And it's the most sensitive area, it's the most complex area. It can no longer be treated as some kind of a stage for theatrics of both the countries. I think they both need to understand that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you, Anuradha, very much, General Hasnain and Rana Majidi. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight. We don't have any answers over here, but I think there's something we can all hope for, peace on the ground, one way or the other. I think everybody wants that to take place, irrespective of any decision which is or is not taken. We're completely out of time on the special edition of Left, Right and Centre. Goodbye.